Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I am your host, Mike Small. You can follow me on Twitter at Real Mike Small, and I'll follow you back. Also, subscribe to the Painted Lines on YouTube. You can watch this podcast and many other great ones. Today is a special day in the Killing Me Smalls podcast. We've got the return of the great AJ Hawk, NFL champion, NCAA champion, and super podcaster, super guy, great player. Very lucky to have him. And we also, AJ, we had to do this. Brian Jacobs works for the Painted Lines with us and is such an AJ Hawk and Packers fan. Now, I'm only going to give him a certain amount of fanboy latitude before we, if you give me one of these, I'm going to cut him off. But we will let him ask a couple of Packers questions. But first of all, thank you for joining the podcast.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, good to be here, and I'm excited. Brian, I'm sure has some good questions. There's so many great Packer fans everywhere, so I'm sure you have some unique ones.
Hey, before we start though, how cool was that? Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP. He's got a minute. He announces his engagement, and at the same time, he gives you a shout out. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, he sure packed a lot into that 1 minute. A lot of different names. Jodie Foster was thrown in there. He announces an engagement. So yeah, he got everything kind of out all in one 60-second chunk. Yeah, but yeah, it was cool to see. I was obviously excited and glad that he won the MVP. I thought it was no question that he was going to get it, but it was nice to see the follow through and then the speech.
All right, Brian, you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Okay. All right. First Packers question. Let it fly.
So, serious note. So, Super Bowl obviously coming up, Packers game coming up, and Ted Thompson passes away. Kevin Green earlier in the year. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what they meant to you as a player.
Oh yeah, well, first Ted Thompson was the GM that drafted me to Green Bay, and I always had so much respect for Ted. How he never cared about anything outside of the facility. He didn't care about any noise going on. He wasn't swayed by the media with anything. He never. I don't think he felt pressure from outside influences, and he just like trusted his process, trusted his scouts, his instincts, what he had seen, and the work he'd done, and that's what he based all of his decisions off of. So I loved that about him, and he really shunned the spotlight. He didn't want to be public with anything. He was just trying to build our team and trying to win games. So he was awesome. But you mentioned Kevin Green too. Yeah, what a unbelievable guy. Just obviously way too young, both of these guys. But Kevin Green was the outside linebackers coach, and I played inside, so he didn't directly coach me, but he still coached me every day and sat right by me in our defensive room and had a lot of interaction with him. And he was just the most positive, upbeat, like most savage guy there is. That was probably like the highest character you could ever think of. Like he had a code that he lived by, and he held everyone else, tried to hold him to that code. And man, he and his whole family were just special people. So yeah, terribly sad thing to happen.
I can't tell you how many times I watched the video of him telling Clay, "It's time, it's time," and I'm sure you've seen it a few times as well, man. And also like regarding Ted, there was always and with the Packers in general, there was always the stigma that and this is kind of tying Aaron in, they never made the move. They never made and when they did, Charles Woodson, when they did, you know what I mean? So do you think, and I always wondered this with Aaron, he could, sorry if my movie makes noise. So he could win with most anybody, in my opinion. He's so damn good. So we bring up the GOAT conversation. Tom Brady just won another one, but like, he's amazing. Do you think that he contributes at all to the team not spending a lot on the offense because of his ability? Or do you think the offense, for example, needs that extra boost?
Well, he probably didn't bust in and say, go pick a quarterback last year.
Nah, let's say that didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, maybe because Aaron had bailed him out of so many situations and finds a way to win and to put up huge numbers no matter who is in there. Maybe that's, you look to think, hey, maybe we don't need a stacked receiver room. We don't need five receivers deep that we can beat all number ones. We don't need that. Like they have Devontae and have plenty of other players that step up. But I don't know, like as far as like the big free agent acquisitions, I don't know what it's going to be like now with the front office and what they may look to do. But the good thing for them is that you're right. Like Aaron makes everyone around him so much better that whoever is there, they're always going to have a chance as long as Aaron is playing quarterback there. But yeah, obviously he would probably love to have pieces here and there throughout his time. But it's usually the quarterback usually doesn't have a whole lot of say in who gets drafted. At least the teams that I've been around.
I
And
actually
my
have
last
a Packers
question.
question.
Go
Is
on.
it all right if I ask a Packers
Go.
question? Just
No,
one.
please.
Yeah.
You know, you guys got the
Ask
Packers
two.
got a new defensive coordinator who was a buddy of Sean McVay's, and yet the Rams would not give him the defensive coordinator job. They passed him over a couple of times. You surprised that that's the direction that the Packers went?
I guess it was a bit weird because
Yeah.
Jim Leonard, they said he get offered the job and he decided to stay at
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin to be the coordinator there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that's a normal thing that happens when jobs are open, but usually maybe not as public as that. I feel like, but I don't know. I wasn't really sure what they were going to do. I wouldn't have been shocked if they kept petting around too. Like the coach, it always falls on the coach, but I mean that their defense this year, they played really well the majority of the year. I feel like maybe they weren't as consistent as they would have liked, and when they need him the most, at times it was tough. But I feel like they took a step forward now. It's never enough. I mean, I know in Green Bay the expectation is Super Bowl every single year, and it should be that way. So we'll see. You never know, I guess, what it's like until I think a coach gets at least 1 or 2 years to really judge how they do.
Brian, you have one more Packer question before we hit the NFL?
So yeah, definitely. You asked a question that kind of ties on to something I was going to ask AJ. So regarding the new hire,
Yeah.
just wondering, like as a former awesome linebacker in the NFL, like what is your anybody on defense? What is your relationship with the coordinator on defense, the linebacker coach, outside linebacker coach, inside linebacker coach, compared to the head coach?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I guess it depends too if your head coach is an offensive or a defensive guy. Like, was he an offensive coordinator coming up through the ranks or a D coordinator? They usually stick to their side. And some coaches that don't call plays, like say they're an offensive guy and they don't call the plays on game day, they may be in defensive stuff more. But when I was in Green Bay, Mike McCarthy, I came in the first year that he came in as the head coach, and he was calling plays the whole time too. So he would stop in on our defensive stuff. He would know what was going on. But as far as like all the installs and all of our defensive meetings throughout the season, head coach isn't in there a whole lot. So yeah, you interact with him, you see him every day, you're walking by him, but you're not having like game plan meetings with him, and he addresses the team. But so your D coordinator is a guy. If you're a defensive player, yeah, that's who you're going to probably interact with the most. Your position coach is the guy that you're going to see and talk to for 12 hours a day. Every day you're in there, you're always going back and forth and trying to get positive feedback if you can and figure out what the game plan is going to be. But a head coach, now it's even a little bit different. I feel like now with kids coming up through college and everything, they have such tight relationships. I feel like with all their coaches, they're all texting, like coaches are texting multiple players a night and everything. That wasn't happening a whole lot when I first got in the league, I think. But now as time goes, like there's a lot more back and forth between even the head coach and a lot of the players in the team.
Yeah, you didn't have to deal with much social media when you played. I guess towards the end you did, but the game changed a little bit. Can you imagine some of the stuff that goes on now if you had to deal with, like when you were at Ohio State, having to deal with some of the social media the way it is now?
Yeah, it would be weird. And there was Twitter and everything was going on when I was playing in the league. I didn't get it. I was a late adopter. I mean, it's crazy to think late was. I think it was after our Super Bowl, so I was like 2011, 2012 when I got on Twitter. I'm not real super active, but yeah, college kids, like they can't even go anywhere. If you're a big time player at these big schools, like these guys show up to a college bar or something, just hanging out, and they're getting probably pictures posted within minutes if they're
Yeah.
big time players. So it's tough for them, and obviously if they are paying attention and dealing with any kind of criticism, because everyone's going to get it. But hopefully those guys don't let it really change, I guess, their approach.
So we are in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia area, and all hell is broken loose. Doug Peterson gets fired 3 years after winning a Super Bowl. It's reported everywhere that Carson Wentz is gone, going to get traded, could be traded right now while we're recording this. One, what's your perception of what's going on here from afar? And two, I mean, you were in a good situation. You had one great quarterback your whole career. But can you see what that can do to a team when you see what happened with Wentz and Hurts this year?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
when there's multiple quarterbacks, like there's going to be certain guys on the team that want to that favor one over the other, and they're each going to have like their little camp. Um, but I think that the miscommunication was what's weird and what makes it sounds like, hey, no one really knew. Like, hey, if Jalen's going in, oh, if whoever's starting the last game, like, what are we doing? Like, with the fact that nobody really knows what's happening is kind of weird to me. And now I feel like, I don't know. Is there any chance that Carson could stay in Philly now?
I don't see how he does at this point. I mean, there's so much, unless they fired the general manager and brought in a new GM and he said, I'm going to fix this. I can't think of a way at this point. Can you, Brian?
Honestly, man, it wasn't there news that just came out that he didn't have a good relationship with Howie?
None. Yeah, terrible relationship. That was what we heard,
So,
or at
I
least
mean,
that's
that would
what's
be
been
the only
reported. I
that would
shouldn't.
be the only thing that would repair it.
Yeah, all I could think of. I mean, can you envision this? I mean, Carson Wentz 3 years ago, he looked amazing. He looked like he was on his way to a Hall of Fame career. And they put up a video compilation of some of his throws in 2020, and he couldn't hit a back coming out of the backfield. I mean, it's almost like you know like Chuck Knobloch. Remember, he couldn't throw to second base, and he was from second base to first, and he just forgot how. And it's almost like he lost his superpowers. I've never seen anything like it.
It's a confidence thing, isn't it? Or it's like, is it Major League Two? The catcher can't get the ball, throw the ball back to the pitcher. I think
Mackie
it's the same
Sasser, that was it. Remember, he couldn't throw it. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think the quarterback position. Anytime I talk to quarterbacks, I love to ask. My brother played quarterback in college. Like, confidence is huge. The great ones could, in the first drive of the game, all of a sudden throw a pick six on a little out route that they threw a split second too late. But they know, like, the great ones can come back and they're going to throw that same route the next drive, and they're not going to be scared to pull the trigger. But I can imagine, like, if your confidence is shot and you're just even a split second off because you're not sure and you're extra pumping, you don't have a great relationship with the head coach and GM possibly, and there's all this strife that you're just trying to press then and make plays. I bet it would feel tough mentally if you got to that spot. And I don't know if Carson Wentz is there, but it definitely seems like there's something going on mentally. He knows he probably still has all the physical tools, but what is needed, I guess, to get him back to what he was like, and probably a change of scenery. I think that it seems like that's the best for everyone in this situation.
Brian.
What do you think? What do you think he'd look like with the Colts? I'm sure you're
pretty
sure
good.
Pat would like that, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
would he like that? That's a good question.
I don't know. He changes his mind all the time on that, but
He had Aaron to the Colts on your podcast last week.
yeah,
He did.
Who
I
wouldn't
had a
want to
heart
go
attack.
there? If you're a quarterback, you get to go play indoors 8 games a year. Your offensive line is some bruisers. You should hope to be able to run the ball. They might get some more weapons on the outside, and your defense plays well. Like, hey, that's a prime position for any quarterback.
Great young running back.
Yeah.
No, it'll be interesting. I mean, what do you think the odds are that a guy like Wentz gets it back? I mean, yes, change of scenery is one thing, but have you seen a guy in that type of situation, that high profile, that's seems to have lost it, and then change of scenery turns it right back at the quarterback position?
I mean, would you put Tannehill in that kind of situation?
Did he ever have it though? I mean,
I don't know.
Tannehill. I'm an unapologetic Dolphin fan, and I don't remember this guy looking anything like he does in Tennessee ever.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so it's gone a little different path, but yeah, I think there's definitely hope for Carson Wentz to get it back. I think all it takes is something. It could be even like one game could get him back, and he could just something would click, or one
Yeah.
throw even. It might take a full season to build that confidence back up. But yeah, I think he knows, like, hey, I've done it before. I can do it again. I just got to figure out what the process is to get there.
Yeah, it could be mechanics. That's simple. I mean, if he goes to Chicago, which is rumored, he'll be back with John DeFilippo, and if he goes to the Colts, he'll be back with Frank Reich, two guys that were very influential in his success.
Yeah, that's what people are hoping, right? They think, hey, Frank Reich could get him back to his old ways, and we may see that play. Like you said, that may be happening right now.
Yeah. Brian?
So you remember when Aaron was talking about how when he changed his whole philosophy back to 2011 when he was putting us on a cliffhanger regarding what he looked back on film and whatnot. And he said that some of the stuff, and this is Philadelphia related, Mike. Okay, so he said some of his stuff was related to like compensating for injuries. Do you think Wentz does the timeline match up to the injury verse? Was it the Rams that he was playing when he got injured at the goal line? Like, do you think that that has anything to do with it?
I mean, it absolutely could. Yeah, anytime you're hurt or you're playing through some like just long term injury type thing that you're gonna play, but yeah, you're gutting it out every day in practice and the game. Yeah, you're gonna compensate, and it's gonna mess with other parts of your body. I remember I tore my pec my in the preseason my third year, and I came back for the first regular season game. I made it back, and I wore this big stupid brace, so I couldn't move my arm and everything, and it still was hurting pretty bad. But I remember I hadn't pulled a muscle ever before that, and I popped my groin in a game in Tampa with that brace on. I feel like I remember the trainers being like, "You never know, man. Like you're moving so weird and everything with your brace and trying to compensate for that pec. Like, yeah, things happen." So I think you could definitely, especially long term things, if you're dealing with something, like you may not even know it. You just slowly get there where your movement is different, or your drop or your hitch looks different, but you never felt it get that way.
It's like the
Okay, be honest
smallest thing.
with me.
The smallest thing could be thrown off.
Yeah. Would you have bet Tampa Bay?
No, I thought Kansas City was going to win.
I had a blowout. I was shocked.
Yeah. I mean, they just Tampa Bay did everything that they needed to do to win, and they shut Kansas City down. And Kansas City had a game that we've never really seen Patrick Mahomes play in the NFL.
Good, Brian. I'll let you wrap it up with a Packers question.
So,
That's my.
do you regret playing for the Bengals at all? Because honestly, man, when I look at your Pro Football Reference and I see all those GBs and I see that one CIN, it hurts me, man.
Well, if you look closely, you're going to see an ATL because I was on the Falcons for about 4 weeks the year they went to the Super Bowl. So it may hurt you even more. But now when I got done in Green Bay after 9 years, I wasn't ready to be done. I wanted to continue to play. And yeah, I grew up a Bengals fan, and luckily Marvin and them, they were great enough. They brought me in for a year, and I loved it. A great time. We had a really good team too. We got beat in the playoffs by the Steelers in a brutal ending. But man, I made some awesome friends there and really enjoyed my time in Cincy. And it was great to see what it's like other places. It was cool to see like, hey, there's a lot of different ways to go about this and scheduling and how they do things and practice. And yeah, it was fun.
Man, you do a great job.
You know how we are. I'm sorry.
You do a great job on that podcast with Pat McAfee. Are you enjoying it? Is this the direction you want to go? Do you want to get into network like your brother-in-law Brady Quinn? What are some of your long-term plans? I think you got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked the last 3 or 4 years as a color analyst calling some college games. I did a lot of Conference USA games this year. A couple of them got canceled towards the end with COVID.
Yeah.
I love doing games. I want to continue to do those. I would love to do NFL games someday. That would be fun. I know my brother-in-law Brady does college and some NFL games for Fox right now and does their Fox pregame show, the Big Noon Kickoff. But yeah, what I do with Pat McAfee 5 days a week right now. We kind of started it once the quarantine happened back in March, almost a year ago now. And yeah, I love what I'm doing with Pat because once things open up too and things get back to normal, we're supposed to do some live stuff, maybe go to some games and broadcast there. And yeah, it's just I'm going to continue to do that and hopefully continue to do some games in the fall.
Man, you guys have such good chemistry. It's such a great show. We got to get Pat on our show. I might need your help on that. I'd love to get him. He's great.
Tough to nail him down at after about 4 p.m. probably. I don't know, but we can try.
All right, I'll do that. AJ,
I started watching that show. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Very good.
Sorry, you're on delay. So I started watching that show because of the Tuesdays with Aaron, and dude, you guys are freaking awesome. You guys do a great job, and I hope you guys keep it up, keep bringing Aaron on. Is Aaron on a little bit of a vacation right now? I assume you guys are gonna have him on this next week, or
no? I don't know how much we'll have him on in the off season. He's who knows? He's probably gonna disappear for a little bit right now. But yeah, Pat and the boys and everyone there are awesome. I have a ton of fun doing it, and I want to continue to do it for as long as I can.
I mean, you have a job where you can sit and smoke a cigar and talk football. That, my friend, is living life. That's not bad.
Believe me, hey, I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah, that's what's cool about now. Cool about with the internet and the million different platforms. Like, yeah, you can try to hopefully figure things out and make things, do things that you want to do.
I just got a text from a guy named Joe Bolin who knows that we're doing this and told me to ask you why you cut your hair.
Well, I had long hair for almost 10 years, and I started and grew it out because I loved Pat Tillman, and he had died. And my
Yeah.
buddies at Ohio State, we did that. And yeah, about 9, 10 years in, I just like, man, I feel like I just didn't want to have long hair anymore. It was just a pain to take care of. I was always wearing hats just because I didn't want to mess with it. And it was getting in my eyes, and it was just time. And so we cut it off, and then we donated it to Wigs for Kids. And now we have this big foundation that my wife and I started when I did cut my hair. And now we're teamed up with the James Cancer Hospital here at Ohio State for the pediatric oncology department. We raise money every year to send there for the kids and their families and support them going through treatment and chemo and radiation and all that. So I thought I was just going to cut my hair and throw it away. My wife was like, no, we need to do something with it. Like, you've had it long for 10 years. We're going to send it in. And then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, okay, let's start our own thing. So that was probably 6-7 years ago.
That's awesome. And if it's okay with you, I wrap up every podcast with this. My daughter has a brain tumor, and she's undergone treatment. She did 16 months of chemotherapy. It's inoperable, but it stopped growing. She's off chemo. She's doing great. She's doing really well in school, one of the top 2 students in the class. And, she got almost a perfect score in her math SATs. But more importantly than that, she's decided to give back. Very similar, AJ, to what you're talking to. We raised over $15,000 to bring gifts to the kids who are just diagnosed over on the oncology floor at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And this year, she got a 501c3 designation, and we're raising money to try to get these kids iPads. So if you're interested, check out smallmiracle.inc.org, and it'll give you a chance to donate, read her journey, and just like you, she's giving back and doing good things. And man, you're a good guy, and it really is an honor to have you on the show. And I'm a big fan of you as a person, as a player, and I know Brian's a great guy, and I'm glad he got a chance to meet you. And thank you so much for joining the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I hope we can get you back again.
Hey, thank you for having me. That's awesome what your daughter is doing. I'm sure you feel very proud. I have four kids myself, so yeah, it's unbelievable that she's doing that. I hope my kids will think be selfless like that at some point too when they're in their journey. But we're trying to set a decent example here, my wife and I. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Brian. Good talking to you, man. Continue to support the Pack. They're going to be dominating. It doesn't matter as long as Aaron's there. They're good to go.
Oh, every chance they have, every game they have a chance when they have that guy. Everybody, thank you for joining. Again, follow me on Twitter at Real Mike Small. You can subscribe to Kill Me Small's podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe to the Painted Lines on YouTube, where you can get this podcast and so many others. Thanks, everybody.